I was just watching Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 a little bit earlier this evening, and I was thinking how Hogwarts had changed, the entire atmosphere at Hogwarts had changed during that 6 years. The Hogwarts you see right before the Battle of Hogwarts is a radically different place than the Hogwarts of 6 years previously when Ron, Harry, Hermione, and Neville all got to school there, and those were the good old days of Quidditch matches, the House Cup, feast in the Great Hall, and all kinds of good times. The world had become considerably darker, and it was just a much different place. But if you think about it, what they were fighting for at the Battle of Hogwarts was to restore those good times for future students and the wizarding world at large. Well, last year, J.K. Rowling published Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which is a stage play that is set 19 years into the future after the Battle of Hogwarts. Warner Brothers does have the rights to Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Don't know if it'll become reality or not. It would be hard to recast, I think, a Harry Potter movie after all this time, but it'll be great to see that come to theaters sometime. And in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child and a few other supplementary materials, we know that this is what happened ultimately to a lot of the people. Minerva McGonagall became the permanent headmaster. Hermione Granger became Ministry of Magic. Harry became head of magical law enforcement for the Ministry of Magic. Ron went to work with George in the joke shop. Harry married Ginny Weasley, and they had several children. Neville Longbottom replaced Professor Sprout as professor of herbology. Luna Lovegood ultimately didn't get together with Neville, but she got together with a guy named Rolf Scamander. So that didn't work out between Luna and Neville. Draco Malfoy, I'm not sure what he did, but he was very, very wealthy, so I guess he did pretty much whatever he wanted to do, considering that he didn't really want to be on the dark side. He kind of got forced into it, and we see a little bit of the struggle at the end of Deathly Hallows 2, and the Cursed Child brings out that he becomes a good guy and actually becomes friends with Harry. And, of course, Hagrid resumed his duties as gamekeeper. So that tells us a lot of what happened 19 years down the road. But as I watched the film The Deathly Hallows Part 2, and then read The Cursed Child, there is a temptation to wonder what happened right after the Battle of Hogwarts. What happened right after Voldemort was defeated? And I think there are some things that we can infer from the information that we're given from 19 years later. It's obvious that Professor McGonagall became the permanent headmaster of Hogwarts right after the Battle of Hogwarts, and she's still in that position 19 years later. Hermione Granger becomes Minister of Magic. Harry is head of magical law enforcement. Ron is working at the joke shop with George. But what happened right after the Battle of Hogwarts? You know, they skipped their final year. Did they go back to a rebuilt Hogwarts and finish that final year? I don't think so. I think that their experience was so deep and broad in that year that they were out chasing Horcruxes that it was just completely unnecessary. They were the most qualified people in the wizarding world to do anything they wanted to do. So I'm thinking that probably what happened is Harry, Ron, and Hermione all went to work for the Ministry of Magic to begin with as Aurors in training. Ron probably didn't stay. We know he didn't stay ultimately. He went to work with George in the joke shop, Fred, of course, having died in the Battle of Hogwarts. I'm thinking that Harry at first probably lived at 12 Grimmauld Place, which was the house that was left to him by Sirius Black, and probably later moved out into the country as he expressed a desire to do. I'm thinking that Ginny Weasley, who ultimately married Harry, probably finished her time at Hogwarts, a rebuilt Hogwarts, which obviously would have been rebuilt by magic. Now, Neville Longbottom, we know that he ultimately replaced Professor Sprout. What we don't know is, did Professor Sprout retire right after the Battle of Hogwarts or not? If not, I'm thinking that Neville probably either joined the staff at Hogwarts in some capacity, or he may have gone off working with magical plants for a while before he came back and replaced Professor Sprout. It seems logical that Neville would have been the head of Gryffindor House after he replaced Professor Sprout. She was Hufflepuff, but heads of houses normally come from that house, so I'm thinking Neville was probably head of Gryffindor House. Draco Malfoy, we're not really sure what he did. That wasn't, the light wasn't thrown on that in The Cursed Child, but you have to remember that Draco was a very rich person from a very rich family, so it probably doesn't matter a lot what he did. We know from The Cursed Child that there were suspicions that he married a woman named Astoria, and there were suspicions that Draco's son Scorpio actually was a child of Voldemort. And I think they spent a lot of time in secrecy and kind of in hiding and trying to fight that. Luna Lovegood did not get together with Neville. They may have dated for a while, but ultimately Luna married someone else. Rolf Scamander, who was the, I believe, great-grandson of Newt Scamander from Fantastic Beasts, which I have not seen. Rubeus Hagrid, he went back to work as the gamekeeper at Hogwarts. There's no indication that Hagrid ever did marry. We know that he went back to his old position at Hogwarts, living on the grounds. Lee Jordan, you can probably speculate a little bit about him. He was the commentator for a lot of the Quidditch games, and we could probably guess that he might have gone to work as a sports commentator for the Wizarding Wireless Network. So probably Harry, Ron, and Hermione did not finish that last year because they didn't need it. I'm thinking Ginny Weasley probably did, because as involved as she was with the Order of the Phoenix, she didn't get the depth of their experience. And so I think they started their careers, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, with the Ministry of Magic. Harry probably living at 12 Grimmauld Place initially. Neville working probably with magical plants and eventually replacing Professor Sprout. Draco Malfoy probably just living off as well. Luna Lovegood was undoubtedly doing some crazy things because she and her dad always did. That was the kind of people they were. Lee may have gone to work for the Wizarding Wireless Network, and Hagrid, returned to his position as gamekeeper. Now, as far as the others, Seamus Finnegan, Pansy Parkinson may have ended up in Azkaban for doing something horrible, who knows. She probably would have been the type, if the opportunity presented itself, to follow in the footsteps of Bellatrix Lestrange. There's every indication of that. But beyond that group I just mentioned, we don't really know what happened to the rest of them, and there's not really much to infer, much to speculate about them. That's what happens when people finish school. What happens to graduating classes is that's pretty much the end of it. They just scatter and go their separate ways. I never went to a reunion in my life, and I don't plan on going to any anymore. I had some reasonably good relationships with some of those people, but it's been years, and as far as compared to them, I'm on a different planet now, and the good relationships there weren't that many really great ones, not that any that would need to be restarted. So I never went to a reunion. A lot of people don't either. Basically, younger people may not want to hear this, but graduating classes just scatter, and that's pretty much the end of it. There may be some contact with some people, but for the most part, lives go in different directions. The class that you graduate with in school is kind of an artificial grouping anyway, that's kind of forced together for a while, and if it wasn't for school, they'd never meet, probably, most of them, and so they just kind of scatter. So it's perfectly normal that we don't know what happened to a lot of these people and probably couldn't even guess. But that is just some speculation on what may have happened right after the Battle of Hogwarts. I was thinking about that, and those are the conclusions that I reached as far as what probably happened to those people.